If you're like me, you grew up with this.
Buy the supplies you need.
Or maybe it looked like this. Oregon Trail. Who didn't love that game? And if you thought it was created by a corporation, you would be mistaken, because it was created by these three guys, college seniors Don, Bill, and Paul. They had an assignment to teach middle schoolers the westward migration. And to make that boring subject a little more fun, they created a board game, but then decided to make it a computer game. Time was really short. They only had 2 weeks to pull it off, but they coded the game, and the kids, they loved it. Now, this is not the version you and I remember because there was no computer screen. So basically the computer would print a prompt on paper and then the student would respond via keyboard. But honestly, it wasn't much different than our version. It just didn't have any visuals. It was a huge success.
Before school started, during lunch, after school, they were lining up outside our classrooms for a chance to sit at the teletype and play this game.
But most teachers in the school considered it a fad. And once the semester ended, Don deleted the program from the school's mainframe. But before doing so, he printed the Oregon Trail code onto a paper scroll. It would sit in a drawer for 3 years. Don, Paul, and Bill, they all went their separate directions. Don got an entry-level job pushing paper at MEC, which was Minnesota Education Computing Consortium. Terrible name. But you might remember their logo from the introduction screens of Oregon Trail. MEC's role was to create and distribute educational games throughout Minnesota. But as a low man on a totem pole, Don was not there to create games, but he remembered Oregon Trail and he thought it might fit well within their roster.
I saw they had this big mainframe system with a library of applications on it that had been collected over time, and I asked, do we need any more? And they said, well, sure, we could always use more educational programs.
So over a Thanksgiving holiday, Don rewrote the code. He made it more historically accurate, and then loaded it into the MEC system. And almost instantly, it became a hit. It was MEC's #1 played game. It became more and more popular, and then it exploded when this happened.
The Apple II, the first computer an individual could take out of the box, plug in, and run.
PCs were now in every school across the country, and schools needed games for these new computers. And MEC had the best software, so naturally they became the go-to provider for educational games. They weren't supplying to 1 or 2 school districts, but 5,000 school districts nationwide. For an annual fee, MEC would ship their games in a binder, and under the agreement, schools could make as many copies as they wished. Before long, MEC was selling overseas to 16 foreign markets, including Japan and France. MEC was raking in tons of money, but the PC market was moving at lightning speed. So fast that the state of Minnesota decided to sell MEC to a group of venture capitalists for $5 million. After the sale, Oregon Trail became the tentpole product. The CEO at the time said 1/3 of the $30 million revenue was coming from one game.
Go west.
Oregon Trail. The number of copies Oregon Trail sold, well, I'll let Don tell you.
Upwards of 65 million copies of the Oregon Trail.
And years later, MEC sold again for $370 million. It became part of a larger group of education software, which was quickly bought by the toy giant Mattel for, wait for it, $3.5 billion. They wanted to make Oregon Trail spin-offs with Barbie.
Western Fun Barbie.
But the deal proved to be a bad one for Mattel, and the spin-offs never happened. Thank goodness. Recently, Time magazine rated Oregon Trail the 9th greatest video game of all time. Today, there are dozens of Oregon Trail spin-offs. Facebook game, iPhone game, card game, Nintendo games, and with all these millions of dollars generated by the Oregon Trail, the original creators must be loaded. But they're not. They didn't score a dime. After Don placed Oregon Trail into the MEC system in 1974, it became MEC's property, and it took a life of its own inside the MEC machine. The most surprising part of this story, Don, Paul, and Bill, they never fought to get money from Oregon Trail. Because as Don puts it,
Paul and Bill and I didn't set out in 1971 to make a great computer game. We were motivated to help kids learn.
which makes me think, maybe Oregon Trail became so popular and profitable because it wasn't created to be popular or profitable. It was created by 3 guys simply trying to make education fun. It was created out of inspiration. It was created out of passion. But one thing is for sure, it was definitely not created for the money.
And in my mind, there is no greater calling. Thank you very much.
What's up, guys? Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this as much as I enjoyed learning about it. I found it fascinating. If you like this kind of thing, subscribe. We're going to make some more. Also, if you want to play Oregon Trail, like right now, there's a link in the description below. You can stop watching this and you can go ford that river